Hello, my name is Mason Albright. I'm doing a project here. Its running name is Voting Application and Web Server. Haven't really come up with a better name, so that's what it is for the time being, anyway. My mentor is a guy named Jake Harrington. He's an old friend, an old coworker of mine. Very smart guy. Uh, he's a full-time front-end web developer for a company named Infor. So he's a very good resource to have on this project. What am I doing? I'm doing the development of a web server and a voting application installed onto a Raspberry Pi. Why am I doing this? Well, a few months ago, I was at my mentor's house, and he was showing me a project that he had worked on. It was very impressive. It was incredibly impressive to me. I'm not extremely experienced in the field, so I don't know much, but it was quite impressive. He showed me this application that he ran through a Raspberry Pi that he has hooked up to his LAN, and he had created the web server himself for it. And he could control all the lights in his house from his computer using this Raspberry Pi. Very, very cool to me. I started talking to him about it, what else he was planning on doing with it, if anything. And he said, "Oh, I'd like to set up a voting application here because I have guys over all the time for like a LAN party, and we have issues with deciding on what games to play because it's hard to get people to be quiet and vote and voice their opinion reasonably and so on, stuff of that nature. So I'd like to set up a voting application where everybody can have access to it and vote on games, and we can see which game has the highest vote. And if people just want to vote on one game, they can, or if they don't care, they don't have to vote, or if there's a couple of games, you can vote on a couple, whatever they want to do. I thought, okay, cool, that's very cool. Well, a few months go by, and I get into the senior SEM course. I'm thinking, what can I do for my project? Well, this crosses my mind. I reach out to Jake and I ask him whatever happened to that voting application we were talking about making. He said he never did it. He still planned to do it. And I said, well, I'll do it. It's perfect for my senior SEM. Do you want to be my mentor? He agreed. He set me up with a bunch of resources, tutorials, and the like to get me going, as I'm pretty inexperienced. And it's been going good so far. So, I digress. Why am I doing it? Personal need, colleagues' personal need, and the practical skills that are going to be obtained. I also had an interview recently that didn't go very well because it focused pretty heavily on JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and like most of you, really the only experience I have is from the web development course here in River Falls. So getting these skills will be good. They're very practical and they can be used in the real world um, when the time comes to pursue a full-time job, full-time employment. So what's the feasibility of this project? To me, this is 100% feasible. There's no doubt in my mind that I can get this done on time, the product that I want, with little to no issues. Uh, Obviously, no project's perfect. I'm going to come across some issues, but when I do, I have my mentor there who's done these things in the real world. So if I get stuck, he's gonna say, "Oh, try this. Have you looked into this? Here's a tutorial in this area. Maybe this will give you an idea." And it's already going well. Even with the start of the project, it was kind of a where do I jump in type situation, and he gave me half a dozen or so hour-long tutorials. He gave me a few websites, things of that nature to get me kind of get the ball rolling, kind of get me thinking about how I'm going to tackle this project. And that's already working out. And so far, I'm working my way through there, and I'm sure as I come across other things, I'm going to need to utilize him some more. So I've come up with 4 main milestones to do this project, to complete this project in. My first milestone I want to have completed by March 5th, which is just a few days away here, and that's the design solidification. I want to come up with a GUI. This is where I'm going to be doing a lot of my personal self-development, going through the tutorials and that such, kind of taking in the skills and the resources I need, figuring out what I'm going to need, and setting up a process for when the development of this project starts. My next milestone, milestone 2, it's going to be a 2-week long sprint. It's going to be done on March 19th. And this is going to be the core development with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. This is going to be most of the coding in my project. It's going to be the development of a local website. It's going to be making sure that all parts and functionality of that website are up to par. I'm going to be creating access points for multiple users as well as an administrator to this web server. It's going to be set up locally at first on my computer just to get things going. And this is going to be where the application itself is developed more so than the web server. Just the web server base is going to be set up so I can utilize the app. I'm going to get to the web server in milestone 3, which I want done by April 2nd. Title of that milestone is setting up a local web server. Pretty straightforward. That's all I plan on doing there. But this is going to be the hardest of the 4 milestones for me, as I have 0 experience doing this. Setting up this local web server, I'm going to be utilizing Node.js, an add-on named Express.js, which I had never heard of prior to this, but I've been told that it's a very good product. It adds a lot of functionality to what I want to do, and depending on how I want to do it, it can make things easier or give me more options in my final product as well. I'm also going to be utilizing Socket.io. What that does is it offers real-time communication between the client and the server. So when people use my product, responses are going to be happening instantaneously, which is exactly what I need if I were to use anything else. This product wouldn't really function the way I envision it to function. My milestone 4, which I want to have done by April 16th, is going to be the installation of the web server onto the Raspberry Pi and final testing. This is going to be the most fun, if I had to pick out a most fun milestone here. Playing around with the Raspberry Pi, I've been doing a little bit of it here and there in the last week or so, and I'm pretty excited to get to this point. I'm going to be hooking it up to a number of different LANs where I live, my own home, my neighbor's home, friends with the neighbors. They've offered up their local area network to test this product, and then my parents' house as well. So I have 3 LANs planned out to test this. I'm going to be utilizing desktops and laptops on those LANs to make sure I have proper access to the web server on the Raspberry Pi through the LAN. And these 4 milestones set up a good timeline, or what I think is a good timeline for this project, because it allows an additional 2 weeks at the end, just as kind of a little buffer zone, because nothing's going to go perfectly. So having another, maybe a week on in case something comes up, and then I'm offered an additional week for final testing. Maybe if there's something really missing in the product that I really want to get in there, I can maybe try and squeeze a little bit of extra functionality in there at the end as well. So how's it going to be used? It's pretty straightforward. I've got 6 use cases. First, the user is going to gain access to the web server on the LAN. So they're going to type in an IP address into their web browser, and this website is going to come up. The user's given the option to put their name on their actions for their current stay on the web server, if you will. They don't have to. It's just a matter of marking what they choose to do while they're visiting. And when the user gets in, whether they choose to create a name or not, they're going to see a list. So let's use this game example. Let's say they see a list of games: Minecraft, League of Legends, Warcraft 3. They're going to be able to vote on what they want to play most. So they can vote on 1 or 3 or 2 or 0 or whatever they want. And if they change their mind, they can unvote. So it's fairly straightforward. And they can add items to the list. If they want to play a different game, they can add it onto there, and remove games as well if they don't have any votes. Not trying to remove anybody's votes from the board, but if it has 0 votes, they'll be able to. And then exiting this program is as simple as closing the tab on your web browser. The future of my project, pretty straightforward. I see very little hiccups in the development here. And like I said earlier, my mentor is here. He's willing and able to help me, very able to help me. without holding my hand too, which is great. A lot of people kind of show you the way more so than kind of guiding, if that makes sense. He's very much enabling me to learn on my own, more so than just handing me piece by piece. So I've already acquired my Raspberry Pi. It's Raspberry Pi 3. Seems to be working for the few tests that I've ran on it. And ultimately, there's endless growth for this. If I wanted to kind of mimic what he did with his project, I could try and set up functionality to control the lights in my house on the LAN, or maybe have a service on this web server where you can upload and download saved games, something of that sort, or music, or homework, or whatever you want. There's really, as long as you can think of something a web server can do, you can add it here. It's just a matter of feasibility, and that's kind of where that 2 week post milestone 4 comes into play, where if there's something I really want to try and tackle before the end of the semester, I have the ability to. And that's my project in a nutshell. It's fairly straightforward. About sums it up. Thanks for listening. See you guys in class.